Welcome to You Know Me, a podcast for Brunswick and the Golden Isles. I'm Buddha,
I'm the Beard.
and we are here today. We have a very special guest, and I'm actually really excited because, I've been working in manufacturing for a long time, and dealing with a lot of different levels of employees. And we have Justin Henshaw here with a brand new product that would, I think, revolutionize
That's the goal.
the workplace. Justin, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of give us a little bit of history of how you got to where you are now?
Sure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity. Love what you guys are doing. The local podcast, it's really much needed, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm born and raised here in the Golden Isles, St. Simons. I from a pretty simple, kind of humble background. My mother, she struggled with like alcohol and drug abuse when I was a child, and she ended up actually, unfortunately, taking her own life when I was 8 years old. And then my grandmother took custody of me and my sister, and she was living here on the island. And we were actually, before then, we were out in Brantley County, like Nahana, Atkinson. And my grandmother took custody of me and my sister, moved us to the island, which might lead you to believe that like she had money. But no, she was on this island back when this was just like dirt roads, right?
Yeah.
Like we lived in like a 500 square foot cinder block house, and she worked as a cashier at Winn-Dixie, here on the island, and she worked as a clerk at the hospital. So we grew up, poor, but we grew up loved and safe thanks to her. She kind of pulled us out of that kind of very dangerous and toxic environment. And Glen Academy, 98, again, just a local boy. Didn't really know what I wanted to do in high school, but I loved the performing arts, so yeah. I was an actor, I was a musician. I still like to play, the guitar for my church and stuff. And I moved to New York City, and I lived in Manhattan for a few years right after high school, chasing childhood dreams of becoming an actor.
Yeah, who does? Right.
And I really did love it. Of course, young me wanted to be a star and all that kind of stuff, but I really did love acting. I loved theater. I loved music, and did some, extra work, did some, modeling, which is what pretty much any of those kids do that day just to kind of make a buck. And did some extra work for like, Guiding Light, that old soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Sex and the City for 30 seconds. Very proud of that.
Awesome.
Yeah. 30 seconds.
Was it just the elbow or?
No, it was me. It was me. You saw me. It was like, there I am and there I went. And that was actually a very embarrassing moment for me because I told my entire family, like, I'm in Sex and the City, and I had a speaking role. I had a speaking. It's comical, but where you see those sitcoms where somebody's in a show and then the director completely cuts the episode, completely cuts the scene.
I've been there.
Yeah, well, that was it. So I was literally excited. Told my family, episode aired, and I had this actual speaking role with Cynthia Nixon, Miranda, in the show.
Yeah.
And she was great to work with. It was fun, and so you see me, and I bump into her, and this whole scene is supposed to play out, and it just goes to the next scene. I was like, no.
That actually happened to me with Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Really?
Yeah, that they actually cut the whole entire 2 days of filming. I'm like,
yeah. Well, did you get so desperate that you bought the DVD just to look for deleted scenes?
Yes.
I didn't even make deleted scenes.
Yeah,
That's how pathetic it was.
It's funny you say that because I did the same thing because I was hoping that they would have because I read that because I was like, why did they delete it? I read it was supposed to be the original opening scene to the movie, so I'm like, it's got to be somewhere, right? Yeah. Who deletes like an alternate opening scene? Nowhere to be found.
Right. So that was the highlight of my acting career, and it was a complete bust. But I just kept plugging away. I was a pretty regular extra on Guiding Light, and actually, and I also was a personal trainer in New York. And one September morning, I went to work at the gym and trained a couple clients. I was leaving to go to the studio to film for Guiding Light, which was literally on like, I want to say like Second Avenue and like 50th or something. It was right around the UN building, which comes into play later. And so I was leaving the gym, and as I was leaving the gym, there was this cardio studio, you know, like all the treadmills and stuff, where people are usually watching the TVs and they're running and doing all that kind of stuff. But it was eerie. They all stopped. You know, they all stopped in place. They all stopped and they were staring up at the TVs, and I was like, "What in the world?" You know, you don't see that. And I looked at the TV, and it was this plane. You know, at that moment. It was like a commuter plane. Some drunk idiot, you know, hit the tower, and we're like, wow, that's really weird. Okay, time to go to work. Okay, so I went downstairs, got in a cab, went to the studio. Even the cab driver was like, hey man, you hear that? Like some idiot like hit the plane, like hit the tower, and I was like, yeah. I was like, crazy. You know, he must have been really drunk. Got to the studio, started rehearsing like kind of the scenes with, you know, and in the studio, like in the world of the you know, you have the principals and the executives, and they all have their fancy rooms, you know, and they're all, you know, and the extras are all in like basically a meeting room, like a doctor's waiting room, you know? And we're just passing the script around and stuff like that, and the TV's on, you know, and then the second plane hits, and then we're just like, wow, this is a thing. This is not that. Now it's an attack, and it got real very quickly. And then all of a sudden we got news that this entire corridor, of course, filming was canceled. This entire corridor where we were was blocked off. We couldn't leave. The National Guard had showed up. They thought that the UN building was a target or something, and they were like, just stay put, stay where you are, and then we'll let you leave later. And then of course there's, you know, all the extras and the principals and the executives all got together, and they went into the executive corporate conference room and hung out together and watched everything unfold. Then the Pentagon was hit. Yeah. And anyway, it was obviously a horrible day, but it definitely shaped the rest of my life. So went home, you know, just sat there for the next few days, not really working, not doing anything like everybody, and just watching the news, and felt really compelled. So I went to the recruiting office. Back then it was in Times Square. It was literally in the center of Times Square. And it was like this one office, and all the branches of government were separated, like they were all cubicles, which was really, because you walk in, it's like a cattle auction, right? It's like, hey, come here. You want to try the Navy? You want to try the Air Force? I was like, you know what, guys, I am just really pissed off right now, and I want to be a Marine. That's it. I want to be a Marine, and to be candid with you. And so the Marine came in, and I enlisted. And February 14th. I left New York, went to Parris Island, and spent the next 6 years in the Marines.
Wow.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you for your service.
Yeah. Did multiple tours in Iraq, Afghanistan. I was in the Battle of Fallujah. And when I was, in 2008, I was 28, I got out, came back home. You know, I didn't really want to go back to New York. I didn't really want to go back to acting and stuff like that. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. I was an infantry Marine, and so if I wanted to go into, you know, government law enforcement or organized crime, I really didn't have a career with that.
Yep.
You know, I didn't know what to do. I can't really put that I'm good with a bayonet on a resume. It just doesn't really, you know, come across.
Hibachi.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, so I went to school, college, Coastal Georgia, found out they were doing 4-year programs. And I was actually the first graduating class of the 4-year business program. I started Island Sound, which was, you know, to date, you know, still kind of my biggest business before Gage, of course. But it's done very well over the years. And I started in college. It was just this idea of just DJing for weddings. And I was really good in front of people. I loved music, loved, you know, electronics and equipment and stereo equipment and PA systems and stuff like that, and I just started doing it. Matter of fact, King and Prince was my first deal. My first contract was, where they put me on their list and they recommended me out. Got really busy with that, really busy. Double booked myself, triple booked myself. I hired a friend of mine to be the second DJ. Hired another friend, and then to this day we do 20, 30 weddings a week. We're in between like Michigan and Tampa. I mean, we're all over multiple states. and we have a really awesome, managing partner that runs it. His name's Mike, and got to give him a shout out. He does a really good job with it.
Wow.
Graduated college and started Fuse. Fuse is the frozen yogurt shops here. It's an independent brand. Not a lot of people know that. They all think it's a franchise, and it's not. It's an independent brand. So we actually started franchising or working towards franchising this year. So we have some really promising leads on that. So we're going to try to franchise that out. We had 4 locations. 1 didn't work out, but we kept the 3 that do really well here in the Center of the Island Village and Jekyll, of course.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
And just kind of forwarding, going forward, I got into the franchise game, got into Jimmy John's, Smoothie King, did a Salada Salad Kitchen, did an independent restaurant. And so, like, all the time while these restaurants and these operations and everything going on, Gage was happening in the background. Like, it was an idea that I had, like, literally 12 years ago when I opened Fuse for the first time, And that's kind of how it all came about. And then as we were getting close with Gage, we started working with the algorithm and the systems, using my team and my management to kind of get input. And we were building out like this prototype, which back in the day was just like a spreadsheet, a really intense spreadsheet. Hired Dr. Carlton, former professor of mine, to kind of help me with the original algorithm. And then we brought on a digital creative agency out of Chattanooga called Whiteboard. They're an incredible company. They helped us really with everything digital. And we had our MVP, which is minimal viable product in the tech world. That's kind of like version 1, right? Mm-hmm. That's really like the prototype, let's see if this thing works. We launched that in January of last year, and we've shown significant traction and great KPIs from it. So, and then we just got funded with institutional funding from an accredited VC group out of Texas called Eagle Venture Fund.
Okay. Wow.
They came in for $250,000, and then a couple angels followed them, and so we're off to the races.
Wow. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
And it is, as far as I know, this is right in you guys' wheelhouse, but it's the Golden House first tech startup.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
you heard it here first, people.
Yeah.
So, in your own words, what is Gage?
Yeah. The elevator pitch is it's the world's first universal employment recognition system and workforce community.
Okay.
So that is in simplest terms how I can put it. If you want a metaphor, it's, I've had investors say, and this is probably the most accurate, it's like LinkedIn, Instagram, and FICO had a baby.
Okay.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn in a sense that it's for work. It's a professional place.
Right.
But LinkedIn is old and crusty and frankly awful. I use it, but I have to. It's like, I feel like it's got a monopoly.
I haven't updated my LinkedIn profile in like 4 years.
And honestly, I don't have a LinkedIn because I look at it. And I don't know, to me, and this just is my opinion, like, I don't feel like it's user friendly. So.
It's not. Well,
No.
it's probably been 14 hours since I've checked it last, and I have no less than 30, solicitations or, cold call. Ooh, and whoever's doing that, just stop. It's awful.
Right.
I get it. You're like, your background matches really well.
Like, you try this product, and I'm just, anyway, I don't mean to knock on them. Matter of fact, I want them to buy me one day.
Right.
But no, the biggest thing is that it's void of anything for the younger generation.
Right.
And certainly entry-level work, which I'll get into that in a second, or shift in hourly workers. And then, so back to the comparison is LinkedIn because it's a place for work. And then it's Instagram because it's a place for recognition and for the younger generation, really, dopamine hitting, like actual feedback and like good job and you're awesome. And then it's, FICO. FICO is one example. I actually prefer like Fitbit. And really all that represents is that there's metrics involved. There's actual data.
Right.
Right. And then you put those together, you have Gage. And really kind of the spirit of it is the workforce is broken It is so screwed up,
I
and it's
agree.
getting worse.
Yeah.
It's getting worse every year, and we see it, and we complain about it. And if you really dissect, the problem, the vast majority of the workforce is shift and hourly workers. It's over 60% of the workforce. It's shift and hourly work. Well, the problem with that segment is that, which is, again, the majority of the workforce. The problem with it is it's so damn disposable. Nothing means anything.
Right.
That's right.
Nothing matters. Like, you clock in, you clock out, you go to sleep, repeat. You go across the street for a quarter an hour more. You bounce around from job to job, and there's absolutely no meaning.
Right. It's like
It's a paycheck.
If something happens to me tomorrow, I'm replaceable the next day.
And if you look at every other facet of life, look at every facet of life that really matters, where performance matters, where growth matters. Everything means something. Like, if you look at education, we go from, getting stickers when we do well in preschool to grades, to attendance, to GPAs, to SAT scores, ACT scores, and then it all just adds up. It's like growing something. You're building something that matters and that adds to your future.
Yeah.
And then you can use that same metaphor for all other facets of life, whether it's financing or whether it's health or fitness. Like, when you do something, it actually matters. It's adding up. So you're getting better. You're growing, but not the workforce.
Yeah.
Not entry-level shift and hourly work, and not the vast majority of the workforce. And if you can create an environment, a community where things do matter, and it is adding up to something, you are growing. You are getting better. And then again, this was all built within my businesses, and that's what I was seeing. I was sick and tired of incredible people, awesome, hard-working kids, not getting recognized for their hard work.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, the people that don't do hard work or that don't do the right things, they're getting the same opportunities.
Right.
Like, and it's just like, it really doesn't matter for 80. You got the top 10% of the workforce of shift and hourly work really do excel, and they catapult, and there's opportunities, and a lot of that is timing, and the business has a promotion or something like that. There's the bottom 10% of that segment that get a lot of attention too, but in a bad way, right? Firing and just cycling through. But that middle 80%, it's just blah. It's just like, what am I doing? And I do like motivational speeches, and I get in front of like high schools and colleges and stuff, and I had a 16-year-old kid that says the reason he loves Gage so much was, we do the right. Some of us do the right things. A lot of us do the right things. We work hard. We really do the right things, and now you've just given us a way to get credit for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing because, 30 years in accounting and finance, manufacturing, and the biggest thing I do is you have to recognize the good work and the hard work, the people that work around you.
Yeah.
A lot of times that doesn't get pointed out. That's the biggest thing. Most times you get called into your boss's office is because you did something wrong.
That's right.
There are a lot of times where I would call people into my office. They think they're in trouble. I just want to say, hey, you did a really good job on this.
Yeah.
And they are taken back.
Because the second they're treated like a piece of equipment. When does a piece of equipment get attention? When something's broken.
Right. Yeah.
It's like when the second that you feel like you're just a part in a machine, you that's like I was telling you earlier in this future of work segment that we find ourselves in, employee engagement, hence Gage in a lot of ways, but employee engagement is the key phrase. That is like, get engaged with them. They're human beings. They're not pieces. They're not equipment.
Yeah.
And that takes an attaboy every now and then. That takes a like, hey, I see you. You're awesome. Keep it up. You're going places. You're going to get. And that's it could be at this job, or it could be at the next job. That's fine, but you're going somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right. And workforce is somewhat mobile now. Like they come and go. They switch jobs. You think about
the gig economy, there's
the gig
like
economy
that.
too. But just for example, let's take King and Prince Seafood and Riches. There's a lot of people go from King and Prince to Riches, Riches to King and Prince, and vice versa. They're always changing.
Right.
And I joked at the HR guys like, you're going to run out of people in Brunswick because they bring in 10 to 15 new people a week, and maybe one stays longer than 3 months.
The data's out there. Like, if all you have to do is get engaged with your workforce, and the loyalty and the tenure goes through the roof, they stay with you. If they feel appreciated, if they feel recognized, they stay.
Yeah.
Which is what we're seeing with Gage. I mean, we have businesses, I won't name names, but that have started out with like 50% retention, and it's gone up to like 92%.
Wow.
And that's really like, I mean, part of it is the score and the metrics, and it's a game. It basically, Gage allows the workforce to kind of gamify their work, but because they get rewarded for time spent at the job, which we'll talk about the score and all that kind of stuff, and you can get into details. But it's also just like, wow, my boss cares. You know, they're looking at like, I get this information that, by the way, belongs to me. It doesn't belong to the business. It doesn't belong to any other, bureaucracy. It's actually my data. It's my performance.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so they can take this with them?
That's right.
Okay.
So that is the key. The value proposition of Gage is so there are HRIS system, human resource information systems, all over, right? There's Paycor, Paycom, Bamboo. I could just keep going down the list, right? They all have the same problem. They're a filing cabinet.
They're horrible.
They're a filing cabinet with manila folders in it, collecting data on the employee. But just like that filing cabinet, the employee doesn't own the data. The business does.
Right.
So that is how we are. If you want to break it down to how Gage is so unique, the patents that we have pending on this system, why we're getting investor intention, is that for the first time ever, there's a management system where the business gets to own the data, yes, because we're of service to them.
Yeah.
But the employee gets to own it, and they take it with them whenever they leave. And that brings out meaning and purpose. That makes the meaningless and the disposable something meaningful.
Right. Well, it gives them, like, they're not just a cog in the wheel.
Right.
I've had several different managers. I've owned a couple of restaurants myself. And when I'm a manager, when I have a staff, I make more of a point to recognize the good work. And I find that I had much loyal employees. I had 2 pizza restaurants, so I had a lot of high school age kids.
Okay.
With Fuse and
Mm-hmm.
similar. When you're 30, 40 years older than these kids, you have to engage somehow. But the number one rule, whether they're high school or about to retire, is respect. And it's not like you have to demand respect from them, but you have to respect them as well. Mm-hmm. And if you show them respect, they will follow you to the gates of hell and back. Mm-hmm. And some people don't understand that. They think, well, I'm a boss. I can say and do whatever I want.
Yeah, there's a difference between a boss and a leader.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
And in seeing that, I had a boss out in California who was a true leader. I mean, the guys who work on the shop, when they were having kids, they're naming their kids after this guy. And they would literally lay down and die for him if he asked.
Right.
He went out there and he talked to them. He knew their wife's name. Mm-hmm. He knew their kid's name. If there's a birthday coming up, he knew the birthday was coming up. And when they had like a company picnic, it was a family picnic. And so I learned a lot. It was 4 years with him. I learned so much about management.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always say that, Gage, may or may not make employees or team members, better employees and team members. It certainly makes managers better managers.
Right.
Because when you give, the tools to managers, because most times managers aren't trained to be managers. It's normally like, hey, you do a good job. Congratulations, you're now a manager. And that is not like you have to train. You have to learn these skills. Mm-hmm. And Gage helps the manager engage with their team members, give touch points, give attaboys or we call them nudges, which is corrective, criticism. And then we have evaluations and stuff like that. So it teaches the managers to be better managers by just simply engaging with their staff.
There's a lot of good employees out there. There's not a lot of good managers.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gage is really kind of giving the manager and supervisor kind of a guideline to organic.
Yeah, the crux of Gage was always when you do something like this, you understand that it's powerful. Like if this were to take off, this would change things. It is a revolutionary, disruptive product. It's so I've always said Gage is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And the simple idea is just simple engagement in a meaningful way to employees changes everything. It changes everything. Yeah. And with the employee being able to own their work for the first time, and you create meaning and purpose, which is what they look for. All the studies show a paycheck doesn't cut it anymore.
Right.
And there is a generational gap there. So when we were growing up, like you get a paycheck, that's the transaction. Like you work. I'm not supposed to coddle you. I'm not supposed to. Here's a check. Go home. That was it. Yep. That does not cut it anymore, guys. And it study after study shows that actually what they make, the money, is like third or fourth of what they look for in a job.
Yeah.
Number one is meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does today matter? Does this shift I'm going in matter to me? Is it adding up to something? Is there some purpose?
Yeah.
And that's what Gage offers you.
Yeah. And then for some job positions, that's important because you're going to work, right? You have to make sure your job matters because then that reflects back on either the customer or whatever task that you have to do to be more productive.
There's a lot of metaphors out there for Gage. I used one, and of course the credit score has come up. The FICO, whatever. To be honest, in the military we have a military transcript. Mm-hmm. Like it's like your record, your military record, your military service record, your MSR, right?
Yep.
Everything you do, from boot camp to the end of your career, whenever that may be, matters. It goes into a record that you own. The government doesn't own it. Your chain of command doesn't own it. They might be able to contribute to it and add to it and see it and access it, but it's not their property. My service record is still in a safety deposit box somewhere. I got to find it, but it's my property. It's proof of everything I've ever done, from every class I took, from every deployment, from every service station. Everything I've ever done, good or bad, goes into that military service record, and it's mine.
Yeah.
Right.
What does that do? That means that everything matters.
Yeah.
Everything is adding up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think with Gage gives a lot of the hourly employees more meaningful than the mundane.
Right.
Look at when you're in a manufacturing environment, even if in a restaurant, if you're in the back of the house, you're just prepping
plugging
food,
away,
plugging food. If we'll use King of Prince Seafood. Sorry, guys, I'm going to use guys as a because I know a few of them are probably will be listening to this, but at King of Prince Seafood, there are 10-hour shifts on a line, and you've got shrimp going by you.
Right.
Sometimes 4,000 pounds an hour.
Right.
And I can honestly see how someone can stand there and go like, what am I doing here? But something with Gage, using that there's a little more meaningfulness to what you're doing because you're actually seeing your progress. And it's that there's almost like an affirmation or something like that to that, isn't there, with Gage? Yeah,
I mean, the idea is that it's real data, it's real information. It's not because there has to be, if it's not valid, if it's not a verified source of information, then it really, the meaningful becomes meaningless real quick, right?
Right.
So, the way it works right now is the business, gets an account, they sign up, and they connect with their employees, and it's like a friend request. If on social media, if you're not friends, you can't see their pictures, you can't like stuff, you can't whatever, right? Yeah. Well, that's what it is. It's like you work for me, and the employee has to accept it. This is a voluntary opt-in system, and the employee say, yes, I do, and then you're connected, and then you get to contribute to each other and contribute to the workspace and the workplace, right? And then whenever a transition happens, good or bad, there's a separation, and then you're unfriended, basically, right? And then the employee gets to take that data to their next job, Nice. So that's the way the system works now. With Gen 2 that's coming out later this year, the second iteration of the product is really going to have more of the employee features, which I'm very excited about. So like just kind of the evolution of the product. With MVP, we really wanted to do one thing with MVP. First off, have some more time with the algorithm in the system, make sure it works, make some tweaks, which we've done, and it'll always continue to evolve, right? And then make sure the system works, and make sure people are enjoying it. People are using the product, right? There's product market fit, and we have that. So we wanted. That's really all we wanted to do with MVP. But unfortunately, with MVP, it's basically a B2B product. It's a business product. It's a very rudimentary HRIS system. But that's not where that's not the future of Gage. The future of Gage is to make sure the employee has every bit of benefit from this product that the business does. But we had to prove revenue. We had to prove that the businesses wanted it. Yeah. And so we had to start somewhere, and that's where we started. But now that we've received funding, the second generation of the product is going to have the social community aspect. It's going to have peer-to-peer connections, peer-to-peer referrals, connecting to a community even outside of your workplace, like social. So it's going to be a very big social element to it. And then of course, a resume builder, which we're very excited about. So Gage basically replaces the resume. Like, we don't even want to call it a resume, because it's more than a resume. A resume, it's a portfolio of everything you've ever done. Right. It's true verified information, not something like a Word template that you made up last night, right? This is actually real data. So it replaces the resume. So these are really exciting features that we have coming. So
that was the first thing I saw when I was researching and watching one of your videos. That was the first thing I saw was, this is going to replace the resume. And my eyes went like, what?
Right. Right.
Industry across the board is dependent on resumes.
Yeah, and they suck. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. As you know, excuse me. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that.
I totally agree with you, because.
Well, first off, it's like I said, it's a Word template, right?
Yeah.
Your referral, your references could be Aunt Jane and Uncle John, and you just, as a business, like especially in the shift in hourly workforce, we don't check. We'll take it and we'll look and we'll just take your word for it, right? But there's just so many problems with it. And first off, you don't update it, right? So you go years without updating it, and then until you need it, and then you update it.
That's true.
And it's just, this is a living, breathing resume. That's kind of like we talk about it all the time, because as we're building a resume builder, it's so different. So we just don't even like to call it. It's the Gage page is what we're calling it. And it's living data. It's real. It's updated every single day. It's updated by even job tenure. Like I'm averaging 82 days at a job, or I'm averaging 103 days. It's real data and verified data, because you connect it to a place of business that uses Gage.
Right. So you see this eventually in the future, employees can use this in hiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's two big plays here, right? There's data, because the data that we're collecting is remarkable, incredible. And not to say that we're going to be selling people's information. We're not going to be doing that. But what we are able to do is collect a lot of data that's very unique, and then recruiting, right? Recruiting is obviously a huge play here, especially when we build out the social component, where it's a community outside of the workplace. So like, imagine you can post on Indeed, LinkedIn, or your Gage wall, like, hey, this is I'm looking for a job. This is my score. If you choose to, because it's voluntary, you can choose. This is private data, and you have to opt in to share this information. But then you share your Gage page, and when an employer sees that, I mean, there's the joke. It's not a joke, because I'm very serious about it. But Gage would challenge the traditional educational system. It would challenge your traditional college degree. Mm-hmm. For most people, not all, of course. Right. There's going to be professions that need college education, but it will challenge the typical, because when a business owner or employer says, I want an applicant with a college degree, well, what are they saying? It's funny. It's not I want an applicant with a degree in business or English lit or underwater basket weaving. I want just an applicant with a college degree. What they're saying is they want an applicant, they want proof or some sort of verification that this person can commit, do what they say they're doing and on time,
Right.
So if I hire this person, there's a good chance they're not going to screw my business up, right?
Right.
Gage does that. And the applicant doesn't have to go $40,000 in debt to get it. It's free.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because our paths are almost similar. Like, you went into the military. I actually went into law enforcement right after 9/11. And when I went into it, I went into Department of Homeland Security, so they were hiring. So it didn't matter, right? Because they needed bodies. They just created Department of Homeland Security, customs, all that stuff. So I went in there, and I only had 2 years of college. It wasn't finished yet, but they hired me. So I started off, you probably know GS levels. I started off at like a very low GS level, but then I worked my way up. But it's interesting now that you mentioned that with college degree, no college degree. Like, I still do the same job, even though I don't have a college degree,
right,
as someone that has a college degree.
Well, I mean, it's really just, we all know that the educational system, there's a reckoning coming, right? I mean, the amount of debt these students are getting in.
Don't get me on this soapbox.
I mean, there is, and it's happening. You can see you can see that there's a shift happening, and I'm proud of it, and I'm glad, and I'm hoping Gage will support it, because to my point, an employer just wants like, when we hire somebody, we have no freaking idea. Like, I mean, you know, we can check references, we can do all this stuff, but it's a guess, right? And what do? We hedge our bets. You know, we say, okay, I'm going to hire you, but I'm going to hire you here at this level, at this wage. Now, if we had proof, and this is already happening with 3,000 users in this community, 60 business accounts, we already have examples and reviews and people saying that I got hired because of my Gage score.
Wow.
And I got paid more.
Wow.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't that make sense? But if somebody walks in off the street right now with a 700 or better on Gage, I'm hiring them on the spot, and I'm paying them more.
Right.
Because it's in my interest to do so as a business owner, because that person has proven that they can commit, they stay at a job more than a week or two, right? They try their best, and the fact that they have Gage and they're showing it off already tells you that they care.
Yeah.
So, what goes into the score? We've talked about the score. What is the score? What makes the score?
Well, first off, you need to understand that we love metrics. As human beings, we love metrics, and we look for metrics wherever we go. And the fact that we're the first one to create an employment metric is remarkable to me. It's like, no, duh. Like, that. Why is this not a thing, right? This is obvious. This is so obvious. So the score was built to be first and foremost foundational. Like, every business cares about this. Like, you know, I always use the example, if it's a coffee shop or a Fortune 500 company, you care about these three components, these three, what we call foundational employment achievements, okay? Now, of course, there's more things that an employer looks for, and depending on what industry you're in, but these three things, every business cares about these three things. Number one, job tenure. We talked about that. How long do you stay at any given job? Do you average 2 or 3 weeks at a job, or do you average 2 or 3 months? Do you average 2 or 3 years? This matters. That's one of the things that you put in a resume. Unfortunately, it's just not verified. With Gage, it is. So job tenure is one of the components. The second component is performance, right? So we do give tools within the business to managers, and of course they have permissions and roles that they have to be assigned through the business to measure their performance within the workplace. We call them touch points and evaluations. Evaluations are nothing new, but we have a unique approach to it. And then touch points, like I said, those attaboys, we call them high fives. And then nudges. If something goes wrong, you know, you can get a nudge or whatever. And then so that's performance. So that's the second one. And then the third one, transitions. How well do you transition? Do you put in your notice, or do you just ditch and bail? Okay. Do you no call, no show? You know, do you and that's, again, every business cares about that. Yep. And there's really no excuse why somebody just can't let their manager know that it's time for them to transition, right? Instead of just saying, peace, I'm out, right? And then, because whenever you do that, you put a burden not only on the employer and the business, but the workers, your coworkers are covering your weight, you know, whenever you do that. Yeah. And so those are the three things, like I said, every business cares about, and they're fair, right? They're fair. And they're easy to obtain. They're not extraordinary, you know, things. They're really easy. Now, I mean, And I will say that we already know that there are going to be other components to the score. There's a lot of discussion. I won't go into much of it today, but there's going to be other components, whether it be education, as long as we verify it, right? Training, certifications, license. There's even talk about maybe doing some like courses within Gage, where like a business can assign, like, if you take this course, you get this many points to your score, whatever, right? But those are all. I'm probably in trouble for even.
That's actually one of my questions was, somewhere down the future, do you think you'd have like a part of Gage where you're actually going to workplaces and training supervisors and managers?
Yeah, there's all sorts of room for education within the platform, right? I mean, because if training, I say education, people jump to college. I just mean training, right? Any type of training, right? And I think that there's always going to be a place for that. Matter of fact, some of our connections, like we're in college in Coastal Georgia right now with the student workers. We've had a lot of discussions with GICA and a bunch of other, which I love, trade schools and teaching kids actual trades.
Yes.
Not taking philosophy.
So much.
Just learn a trade. You can become rich doing anything.
I look at GICA and then I look back at when I was in high school and I'm like, I wish I had something like that.
I do too.
I had the opportunity. I could have not gone to college and worked for this master carpenter mason.
Yeah.
He asked me to do that, and I said, "Oh no, I can't. My dad will kill me if I don't go to college." Oh man, sometimes I go back like, man, I could have been a carpenter and a mason right now.
Yeah. And I nobody wants to just completely. Obviously, college has a place.
Yeah.
And it has, and it always will. God, I don't want. I don't want to have get brain surgery from somebody that went to a trade school, or watched a couple YouTube videos. I get it. It's always going to have a place, but we all understand that for the most of the workforce, it's not needed, and it's an unnecessary burden financially. Getting in debt over this, like I said, going into $50,000 in debt for gender studies, your parents need help, or whoever lets you do that, just stop. So anyway, but I'm off the college train.
I mean, I've been through a lot of leadership training through the years, and I found most of these things are really kind of crappy.
Right.
I even did the Dale Carnegie, leadership training, and your textbook is how to make friends and influence. His book was based at the whole training is based on this book, and the book was an interesting read. But I mean, I've never really had a really good make sense training course for leaders and supervisors, and so I think you have an opportunity to maybe somewhere down the future, as a part of Gage, is to have that kind of training that kind of goes along with what you're trying to do here, that fits with the supervisor manager side of Gage.
We always talk about this, and this is why investors are so excited. So much we can do with Gage.
Yeah.
So there's no ceiling to this. I mean, when you just simply let the employee own the data, when they own their work, when they own the product of their blood, sweat, and tears, you can move mountains,
right?
Because it becomes meaning. Could you imagine being a college athlete? And you want to make football or whatever your career, and you want to go to NFL, and imagine just for a second that there's no data, there's no metrics. What's your run time? I don't know. We don't track it. How many games have you won? I don't know. We don't keep score. Yeah. Oh, you don't keep score. So there's just nothing. Like, I'm good. I promise. Right.
Right.
Like, imagine that. It's laughable.
Just put me in, coach. I don't smoke.
Yeah. It's laughable, and it's an extreme example, but it's what's happening in the workforce.
Yeah.
Nothing means anything. Nothing matters.
Well, it's true. I mean, a professional athlete, it's all about their metrics. It's all about their numbers.
And let me also say that we all know that it matters, right? We because especially the entry level workforce, these young kids, that's where they learn. They're learning skills. They're learning how to show up on time, to listen to a boss, and to make sure and manage and deal with customers and customer service, and they're learning all of these skills. So yeah, it does matter. It just doesn't feel like it matters because there's nothing tangible for them to hold on to.
So actually, I just thought popped in my head. Now, is there a safeguard in Gage? Because you always have
100%.
do you know what I'm about to ask?
The first, and that is, of course, that's always going to come up in the very beginning. And I think this may be why maybe nobody's ever done this. You always want to protect the employee first and foremost. You want to create a fair, objective, unbiased environment. I believe we've done that, and it'll continue to get there. You just have to create those guardrails.
Okay.
And we've done that. Even in the algorithm itself, it's learning to protect against abuse. I shouldn't use that word, misuse.
Yeah.
If you misuse the product, if you literally just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, well, we've got algorithm to protect against that. Same thing if you work for your mom, tens.
Right. Or you work for your best friend.
Yeah, I mean, so that is easily handled with simple algorithm.
Okay.
And so we have those mechanisms in place, and we're going to grow those mechanisms with AI and everything. So the product is always learning. So the product is always evolving. Nice. And there's even challenge systems. There's going to be challenges, like if something shows up on your credit score or your credit report that's not accurate, you're able to challenge that, right? Yeah. I mean, and I think that that is also going to, we already have that. We've only had one, maybe two, if Antonia is here, she should be able to tell you. We have 1 or 2 examples of something that happened, whether it be, someone saying that they did put in their notice and the exit evaluation said they didn't. We can have protections against those side of things.
Okay.
Like let's, and I'm not going to go into details of what it is we're doing, but the system that we've created is very fair. If for whatever reason which the score always, like, it's very seldom does the score go down because, Gage was, and this is, if one day we have a building, we're going to put this right at the top. Like, Gage was not about punishing. Gage was about rewarding.
Right.
Because if you reward, you don't need to punish.
Exactly.
If you lift people up, you don't need to hold people down. And that's what the spirit of Gage is all about. So you can create an environment, like, there's no negativity in Gage. The only negative, quote unquote, negative thing, and I don't even like to use that word, is the nudge. And it's really just, people use it as a write-up, in a place of work. Because in a place of work, you do need something. You need some sort of, that wasn't cool, let's not do that again. Yeah. Some sort of correcting, or it's just, they're never going to get improved, never going to get better. And that is the only negative thing.
Right.
Like, there's never going to be a star system or a rating system.
Right.
And I hate the rating system. I hate the review system.
Like
that sandwich was awesome, awful, like 1 star, like, and it's like, it's just, I'm never going to create an environment like that. You don't need to punish if you just reward. Because the only punishment is the absence of a reward. The only punishment is the absence of a reward.
Right. And sometimes that hurts more than having,
when you see your friends are like, hey, what's your score? I'm 600 now. What? I want to be a 600.
So is Gage a one-size-fit-all, or is it customizable to whatever industry or business that's going into?
So that's come up several times. Matter of fact, we would have a pilot right now with a national brand if we agreed to customize our product. It's not customizable, and that's very intentional. To be a universal language, we can't be just for restaurants or just for this brand or just for that brand. We're not going to be able to create a white label product where anybody can just slap it. I mean, that would be a lot easier than what we're trying to do. And we'd probably make a lot of money doing it. But that's not the goal. That's not the mission, the vision of Gage. The Gage is to be a universal language, a common table between the employer and the employee. And the only way to achieve that is to be our own thing.
Right. Business standard and not an industrial standard.
Right. Yeah, or a workforce standard.
Yeah.
Just a workforce standard. The basics of what it takes to be a valuable contributor to the workforce. I mean, that's powerful. And now there are a lot of talks about, like, having a business being able to like add their own components to the score within their workplace, within their workspace. That's absolutely fine, but it's still going to be under the umbrella of Gage.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm a supervisor and we're using Gage, is there a web-based part of it? If I'm writing up attaboys or nudges?
Yes, totally. There's a portal.
Okay.
There's a portal. so that you have the mobile app, that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, but the admins of the business have a portal.
Okay.
And the portal is, I'm actually really proud of where the portal is at MVP. The portal is incredible. I use it all the time in my business. It tracks how many exits you've had, how many, new employees you've had, your retention rate, your turnover rate. That's data that you're not tracking right now, most businesses.
Right.
I mean, if you're like Chick-fil-A is obviously, they know exactly what their turnover rate is. But most businesses don't. And nothing will ever be a greater representation of your culture and your leadership than turnover rate.
Yep.
So you're able to track that. You're also able to track your high performers. You can see them in one spot. Who's your top performers? Who's getting the most? Who needs the most attention? And who is also for that next promotion? You know what I mean?
Right.
So the portal is pretty incredible too. I'll show you guys.
That's really cool because I just think I was like, if I'm a supervisor and I have, say, 10 people on my team, and if I got to do all this stuff on the phone, my thumbs would be
blistered. Well, we have a brand right now that's considering a franchise rollout because it's a chain. Excuse me. And I'm intentionally not naming names because I don't want to get in trouble, but it's a brand. They've got like 100, 120 units. They're considering doing a franchise rollout, making Gage mandatory to their franchisees. Because at a corporate level, they're able to see everything that happens. Like how are their managers managing? Are they getting engaged with their team? Are they running because otherwise they really don't know. I mean, they might be able to track their turnover rate and stuff like that, but they don't know why the turnover is so high. Well, Gage tells you Brian, whatever, you haven't given a single touch point. You haven't given any evaluations to your team members. Why? And that's when the bosses get the managers, in line.
This is what I love about this because it really gets to some of the crux of some of the issues that I've dealt with for the past 30 years. Mm-hmm. It's not always these hourly boots on the ground workers that are the ones actually making the product that's giving you your money.
Right.
It's these supervisors and leaders that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing by training them up, encouraging them to do well. I've seen it too many times where they're breaking people down,
right,
instead of building people up, and that's the source of the morale. And I've seen it all the time. So this is a great tool because it really guides these leaders and supervisors to manage better.
So I was at yes, 100%, and that's like I said, it's not just about making team members better, but it's about making managers better because most of them just don't have the tools.
No,
they don't have the training, and you just don't walk into a position like that and become an instant great leader, right?
No, you don't.
And so that's a huge place for this. But I was at I spoke to Brunswick High the other day, and it was really cool because it was a full auditorium, a lot of a couple hundred students, whatever, and I asked them, and I was just curious because, I don't know. I asked them, I was like, who's heard of Gage? And they all raised their hand.
Wow.
Like all of them raised their hand.
Sweet.
Wow.
So, and that was cool. And then I said, is anybody in Gage right now? Because we're still, microscopic, small, but 10%, roughly 10% of the auditorium raised their hand, and they were in Gage. And I saw them kind of showing, their people. Anyway, they were all trying to download the app and get it, but there was nothing for them to do at this moment because we're at MVP, and I told them, but it was just so reassuring that these kids want this. I think that the reason the Gage hasn't been done before, something like Gage, is because people assume that they don't want it. They do.
Yes.
They want recognition. They want appreciation. They want to grow.
Yeah.
And
that's never been, I put it on social media, like a picture with all of us, and they want this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's these younger generations coming up. Something like this is really fulfilling for them.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have that kind of stuff, and they should have it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking accounting and finance right now, and talking with other business owners, one of the most difficult things to do in owning business, and you can agree to this, I think, is hiring people.
Yeah.
It's tough. And
it's definitely tough these days.
And on the accounting side, it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
The cost in finding the right people, train the right people. And then what if that person ups and goes 2 weeks later? That's sunk cost that you can never recover.
So the average turnover cost for a QSR restaurant is $150,000 a year.
Yep.
That's that. And the problem with the it's usually not a line item on a P&L.
No.
It's in training, it's in uniforms, it's in all other sorts, advertising for recruiting, Indeed, whatever. But on average, $150,000 a year that they spend in turnover. Gage never pretends to just fix all of your turnover problems, but all you have to do is just move the needle, and you're saving so much money. I mean, the value proposition to the business is huge, but we don't. It's just tough to. Businesses are so, especially these businesses, they're so busy. Where the managers are just as busy, the employees, if not more so. The business owners are busier than everybody. I mean, my heart goes out to business owners too. Everybody's just struggling, running around, and they don't have, they feel like they don't have the time to adopt a new system, and so that's, as a B2B product, this is going to be, really tough. And that's why we're going to a hybrid where the employees are going to be given the keys, and then they can actually grow the product. Nice. And they will.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So now the employees, can they give feedback on their bosses?
It's coming. Okay. Yeah, that was definitely we heard it loud and clear. Part of MVP in this journey has been listening to our customers, listening to our users, and making sure that we make the product better. Right now there's an exit evaluation, which is a huge component to the score that the business gives the employee. But I foresee a future in the very near future with Gage where the employee is going to be able to give an exit evaluation.
Right, that's what I was thinking about. Yeah. Like if I'm the employer and I want to know why did you
want to know that information, and it doesn't have to be done in a damaging way to the business. It won't be at all. It's going to be a private, where the business owner or the administrator can see this information, like. Why did you leave? Oh, well, they're leaving because of this manager. This manager's toxic. He's got to go. Or they're leaving because the hours are bad. Or they're leaving. And this is information and data that the business owner needs.
Yes.
And they're going to, pay through their nose eventually to get it. But what I'm saying is, not with Gage, but just the idea that they're actually going to want this product.
Right.
And because it's going to offer them data that they're not ordinarily getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely opens the line of communication more. I think a lot of people just leave, and you never know why.
Right.
But when you have a tool like Gage and someone's leaving, they can just there's a little buffer zone, so they may feel safer to be more honest about. This manager was so horrible to me.
So this is a great segue into our mission statement. Our mission statement is to build a better workforce by adding accountability, transparency, and communication. Mm-hmm. Those are those three core values to Gage: accountability, transparency, and communication. If you look at it, every human relationship needs those three things.
Yeah.
Whether it's brother, sister, spouse, every human relationship, including and especially the employee-employer relationship, you need those, and both of them. And our mission statement doesn't say anything about the business gets more accountability or the employee gets more. No, it says the workforce, to build a better workforce, because those three things, whenever you take one of them away, it's damaging to the entire relationship.
That's right.
And if you have it, like, why was I fired? Well, this is why you're fired, right?
Right.
Or why was I not promoted? This is why. And then to the business, like, why did I leave? Well, this is why. That manager is really mean. Like, I just don't like working for him. So when you add anything that we do with Gage is going to be in the spirit of adding those three core values.
Yeah, communication is huge, and I think people work better when they know why they're doing what they're doing, and what it takes, what they're doing, and what it means to the bottom line. I've been in a few places where I would actually have kind of an accounting 101 class for the shop employees.
Right.
And say, this is what you guys are doing. And this is how it translates. It's like, without you, we wouldn't have a profit.
Right.
Yeah. And I've told people this. It's like, this is not my product. This is not the CEO's product. This is your product.
Yeah. That's
you're doing it. You're making this. You're putting on a truck and you're sending it out. this is your work, and your work is doing this.
Yeah.
And when they kind of understand that, there's a little bit more of a sense of purpose for them out there, understanding that they're getting recognized, and people realize that they're part of this organization and not just a person or an employee number.
Yeah, I mean, it's so depressing out there these days when work ethic in general is just deteriorating and just dying, and this is part of the reason. Like the part of the reason is that it's just so meaningless and disposable, and you're not getting recognized, and you feel like a mechanism in a machine. You just feel like just a piece of equipment. That's why. There's no, because everybody needs work. Everybody needs purpose. Everybody needs a reason to get out of bed, right?
Right.
And I would put all of the problems we're having in this nation with maybe just people need more purpose.
Right.
Like when you have no purpose, when you have no reason to get out of bed, depressions go through the roof. Anxiety goes through the roof. Suicide goes through the roof. Everything. It just all starts breaking down. And the workforce could be so much better.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why that's why I'm looking at your product and the app, and it just makes sense. And exactly what you were just saying too, Frank, because like there's also situations where nobody on the top ever tells the people on the bottom you're important, right? And then those people on the bottom say, well, what's this matter for me anymore? But with Gage, I could see now the people on the top, they can easily communicate with the people on the bottom. Say, no, wait, you are important.
Yeah.
Without you, there's nothing.
Yeah, the emotional connection that our users are getting to Gage can't be overstated.
Right.
Like right now, so I have a story when it comes to, and I don't know how we're doing on time, but there's a story about.
I can't believe how far.
We've changed. No, I've enjoyed it. This time flies when you're having fun. So I have an employee. We had this example of when we were tweaking the algorithm. We were making changes to the algorithm, which is happening. It's going to continue to happen forever, right? However, before we didn't have the mechanism in place to keep the score kind of steady, and so whenever we made shift to the algorithm, the entire score changed. In some cases, the score went down, even though the employee didn't do anything. There's nothing like it. Just and we sent out emails and we were like, hey, the score's going to shift. Don't worry, it's going to shift globally. So there's no so the value's the same, but
right.
Just because everything is and whenever we made that change, man, we got blown up with what did I do? What happened? I was in the 700s and now I'm like a 620 and I just hate it. I was like, I want to be back in the 700. Right. How do I get back in the 700? Now this score means absolutely nothing right now, right? I mean, we're just starting.
Right.
But they have an emotional connection to their work,
right.
And to their score. And if there's never been more of a validation of what we're trying to do, it was that day.
Yeah.
Because people were so connected to it and they love it.
Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean because I'm a training specialist at FLETC. So I get level ones, and that's from the students, the trainees. They rate how well did I perform as an instructor.
Yeah.
And I take those things to heart. Like when I read them, when I get good feedback, that makes me feel good and makes me want to perform. Even though I'm getting good feedback, I want to get even better feedback.
Right.
But then, but also if someone says, oh, this and this, well, then I know, okay, you know what? That was a nudge. I can improve and make that better.
I had an employee that got a nudge from me when we were starting with the alpha test. And he actually came up to me and because, there's always been a part of me that just wants to remove the nudge because the nudge is the only negative thing, quote unquote, negative thing in the system. But I'm not going to do it because first of all, people are using it. They don't the ratio of high fives to nudges. I'm very proud of. It's 100 high fives to one nudge.
Right.
I mean, and that affirms my, hope in humanity. People want to be they want to give attaboys.
Yes.
They don't want to be negative. They don't want to be, and some businesses feel like a nudge is so that's bad. Matter of fact, I just had one of our companies tell me the other day, the business owners say, because I always thought the nudge would be first, kind of like the warning before a big write-up and a big sit down and a big warning before you're terminated, whatever. But I had a business owner say that they use it last, right before termination. They'll do a write-up and then a sit down, and then they nudge last. And I was like, that's interesting. Why do you do that? Yeah. And they're like, because it feels big. It feels like really big because it impacts. I mean, let me be perfectly clear. You want to get rid of a nudge, just get a high five. Like, it's not a very impactful event, to your score or to your system. I mean, over time, if you get multiple ones over and over and over and over again, yes, it does matter. But it doesn't but it felt heavy to them, and it felt like a big deal. And I was like, that is interesting, and I've just been marinating on that ever since. But like I said, people need corrective criticism but I had that employee come up to me and say, Justin, I don't mind the nudges. Actually, I kind of like them because I want to do better.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be better and I want to grow. And you just, told me first off that you care enough to give it to me and let me know. But now I just have a way of improving it.
Right. And that's how I feel sometimes on the level ones. If someone wrote, could have improved or done this better.
Yeah.
Well, if I would have never known that, right? That if I'm doing, but that little tiny criticism, but now on the next evaluation or next high five, right? I've improved because I knew, hey, this is a little area that you need to improve, and that helps also.
Yeah, the nudge is here to stay. I mean, it's just like I said, it's just needed. You have to have it if you really want to improve your workforce.
Yeah,
it's like a constructive criticism type of thing.
That's kind of how I call it, constructive criticism.
Yeah. Work on your timing. Or
like, hey, you were late today. Can we just not do that again? And it documents it, by the way.
Yeah,
it documents it. So, like, not only for the business but for the employee. Like, I mean, everything that happens within Gage, again, going back to our core value proposition to both businesses and the employees, but particularly to the employees, everything that happens in Gage is their information. Like, they get to keep it forever. So, like, evaluations that my 16-year-old kids in Fuse are getting this month, when they're 40 years old, they're going to be able to still have Gage, hopefully, and look back and say, oh, look at that evaluation I got when I was a freshman.
How far I've come.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
Isn't that cool? It's a total database for everything they do within the workforce.
So I got a question. So the employee, that evaluation, that Gage, that's theirs. Mm-hmm. Does the employee have to pay?
No, it's free to the employee.
Okay.
It always will be.
Okay.
Always will. You've heard it here first.
Okay.
It'll be free to the employee, always. The revenue stream is simply the business, because the business is paying for HRIS systems anyway. They might as well pay for a meaningful one.
Correct.
That's for that the employees want. So yeah, it is free to the employees and always will be.
That's awesome. That's good to know.
So, other systems, one that pops out because I've been hearing their ads is TriNet. They have a whole suite of payroll benefits. They can be your actual HR department. A new person you can hire on, give them this 800 number, and then they call this number and they set everything up for them. Is that where you're going towards, something like that, or do you really want to focus with the employee engagement?
So, is your question just about the onboarding journey?
Like, the whole thing. I mean, you're starting out with this employee engagement, but with other systems, because I've seen a ton of them. Some are okay.
Whether we integrate with them or bolt on with them.
Say like for instance, like with TriNet. I've actually worked with TriNet. I was helping out a smaller steel company up in way out somewhere in the middle of Georgia.
Yeah.
They had no HR, and so I could tell the benefits they were offering. He was the owner. He was getting hosed by these guys. I brought in TriNet, and we were able to streamline everything so that when we hire someone new, they get an 800 number and they can set all their benefits up and everything's set. And it takes the pressure off of me.
Right.
Because I was not only the payroll, AR, controller, and HR generalist.
Well, first off, you need to envision a world where the employee does it. Because the employee is entering in their information, their own information. That's part of this. We're a hybrid. We're a B2B and a B2C. The objective is to get the employees driving this product, where the employees connect to the business, not the other way around. then there's going to be some things that the business have to set up, but the lift should be very minimal. It's not going to be heavy like an HRIS system, because and it also takes a liability off the business. So the employee puts in their data, puts in all of their information, and they simply connect to that place of business.
Nice.
And they could do it with a simple Google API for location without even the business signing up yet. And then, and just in the spirit of making sure this product has organic growth, and then a business ultimately can create a system or a profile and subscription and get going on it, But if you create a product, Slack did that all too well, right? You all know Slack, right?
Yeah.
It's a messaging. It's a
okay.
messaging
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
It's a very impressive company that has just blown up. But they did it. Their B2B revenue that the businesses pay a subscription. That's how they make money. But they didn't. They had like $0 marketing to businesses. Like, they didn't go after the business at all. They went after the end user, the employees. And when the employees were so, and it's funny because I always talk about Slack. I can't stand Slack. I just don't. I respect it as a company, as a startup, or as a very successful unicorn right now. But I don't like it. I was like, we have email, we have text. I mean, why do we need this? But I'm paying for Slack in 3 of my companies. Now, why am I paying for it? If I hate it, I'm the owner. I'm the one writing the checks. I pay for it. Why am I paying for it? Because my employees want it.
Right.
And if they're happier and they're more productive and everybody's winning, who am I to complain? So I pay for it. I was like, listen, if you need to get in touch with me, just text me. I was like, I'm not being on Slack. I don't know. It's just, or soon to be, you can message me on Gage.
Okay. So you'll be able to do DMs on Gage.
Totally. That's part of Gen 2. Gen 2 is communication. So the first thing that people wanted within their business was communication. And Slack proved that. And there's obviously a litany of messaging platforms and group messaging platforms, stuff like that. Gage will certainly have that component because it's just needed within the business. Yeah. And if you're already messaging within the app, then it's going to be even easier to give touch points and to interact within the Gage system. Yeah. So that's totally coming with Gen 2.
Wow. And then I guess my other question with Gage. So if I'm an employee and I leave, and I think you mentioned this before, but I just want to make sure I get it correctly. Who disengages first? Will it be me, the employee, that disengages if I ever?
It depends on how what happened with the transition. So
right.
like the employee can put a 2 weeks notice in through the app. So if they want to transition out, they can submit the 2 weeks notice. If the it depends on who initiates the separation, right? Okay. So both sides can initiate the separation.
Okay.
And the other side basically just confirms it with an exit evaluation.
Right. And is there safeguards to make sure that there is? Oh.
I mean, there's a challenge system that we have in place that makes sure that everything's done. And there's a lot of talk about I was talking about this earlier. There's a lot of talk about the challenge system. What are we going to do? Are we going to give people okay, you get one, you know what I mean? Or you get one within a year or something like that. There's all sorts of things in the pipeline in our workshops that we're talking about.
Okay.
But the spirit of it will always be to protect the employee. And like I said, after 3,000 users and 60 businesses, we've had 1 or 2 situations that we sided with the employee. We gave them the benefit of the doubt. And that's not, I'm not saying that's our way forward or that's written in law or rule or any way, but just understand the spirit is that we will have those guardrails and we will have those protections for the employee. You also need to think of it as one little incident feels big, right?
Right.
But Gage tracks multiple managers and multiple businesses and your entire work history. So one little thing here and there, that's not going to impact your score, your profile, right? It's your total your patterns of behavior over your entire career, right? I mean, that's a spirit. Yeah. But we'll definitely have those protections. Yeah.
Wow.
Labor laws are different state to state. As Gage grows, will you have to consider some of those laws?
Well, first thing you should know is that we are we are compatible with the laws of California, so that means we're good everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, I can agree to that.
Yeah. So that means we're solid. No, I mean the biggest thing that we have HR people, people that are in HR and and I love dealing with HR managers and directors. They're actually my favorite because they ask the toughest questions, but I'm always, they're really easy dealt with because this is an opt-in system. This is voluntary. There's nothing restrictive or controlling. Delete it if you don't want it.
Right.
Literally delete it. Like it's not something that you want this because you want it. You can delete it. It's no big deal, and that right there just resolves any liability or legality. It's like this is a system where the employee literally can delete it at any time. But the problem is not the problem, but the good thing is they don't want to delete it.
Right.
They don't want it because it's their information. Once they realize how private it is, and I should have led with this. We haven't talked about this, but the employee's information is 100% private, right? They have to. They literally have to, choose to whether or not they want to share it. They choose who gets to contribute to it. The business. They choose whether or not the business can contribute to it. They choose whether or not somebody can see it. There's never going to be a world where I can just, what's Adrian's score, and just Google it or something like that. That's not going to happen. This is as private as their bank account and as private as their credit score. And if you don't like it and you don't want it, delete it. That's and everything just kind of and then there's just a sigh of relief, right? It's like, oh wow, cool. Right? This is not a credit score. This is like my Fitbit account. Like,
right.
But I ate a lot of pizza that week and I had a bad weigh-in and I'm going to delete it. No, I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to try to eat more salads next week and be better, right?
try to balance it out.
Yeah. As long as it's not on social and nobody sees it, I'm good. I'll just be better next week.
Now, do you fear, because we talk, you just mentioned credit scores and everyone's like, oh, my credit score, right? And everything's based off a credit score. How can I word this? Is there a fear that you think people may eventually just take? We talk about like China has like a, you know what I'm trying to say.
I know what you're going.
Yeah, like do you have a fear that this may eventually kind of go into that?
Well, the China thing has come up. The social credit score has come up. Yeah. Everybody talk. There's been a couple kids be like, "Have you seen that Black Mirror episode?" And,
right.
Well, first off, again, you can delete it. All those other scenarios you can't.
Right.
Like you don't have to have this.
Right.
The Black Mirror episode, which I found very entertaining, and I love Black Mirror. That's laughable on its face because that's like everybody everywhere floating around, and it's the star system, which I will never do. I would never have a star system. It's laughable at that point to try to compare those two.
That was a funny episode.
I mean here's the crux of it, guys. You have to ask yourselves: can performance within the workforce be measured? Of course it can.
Yeah.
We can measure, it can. And the second question you have to ask yourself, is there value in that for both the business and the employee? 100% yes. Yeah. Those are the two questions you have to ask yourself. Everything else can be handled and dealt with and protected, and that's what we'll do as we evolve as a country, as a company.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, I think, it's a great way of, we've used this word a lot, engage, but seeing your score kind of gives you purpose. It kind of gives you like, I just need to do it just a little bit better today.
Yeah.
Because they want to see that score go up and up and up.
Yeah.
And so,
and it benefits you in a very real monetary way, and then over time, as more businesses adopt the system, then you'll be able to navigate from job to job and start out where you left off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's you don't have to start over. You know what I mean? You don't have to reset.
Yep.
You go to a new job because you're just burned out and you want a new job. That is 100% fine, and that's the way of life, and that you should not feel guilty about that. You should go and be happy.
Yeah.
But now you don't have to start over. You can go with you can keep going where you left off.
You get those praises. You see the fruit of your labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You touched on it really briefly, but there's a dopamine hit right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are lacking.
Well, that's what they get recognition for everything, right? Posting pictures of their dog, they get recognition. They get,
those
high fives, likes, or
the
whatever,
likes,
hearts,
yeah.
and and that's how they're wired now. And you can complain about it all you want, but that's just
Yeah.
reality.
I mean, we
That's
could
just
have a
where we
whole
are.
nother hour.
That's where we are, right?
Right.
So
Oh,
as a business owner, you can either complain about it, or you can, let's go.
Let's
you
go.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
This
Like
is-
I was going to say, we can have a whole other hour on
Yeah.
just that sociology
Yeah.
of
And how
that.
we're rewired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this product's amazing because I know, and we're about the same age. Growing up, we mentioned that before. It was just paycheck, no recognition.
Right.
But people need recognition,
Yeah.
and this product, this app, is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like it. In fact, I'd probably ask for some literature to bring it
Yeah.
to my HR person. Just as something to look at. I know we've got guys that work out in the shop, and it's good for retention.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I see is the revolving door. Being short staffed or having people coming in and out doesn't just affect your labor costs. It affects your productivity on the shop floor because you're shorthanded. You can't produce fast enough. You're missing shipping dates. You're missing targets because we don't have enough people out there to load trucks or to whatever else they need to do out there.
Yeah, people are leaving the workforce in droves, and it's the pandemic kind of just all it did was throw gasoline on a problem that we already had, and it blew it out to proportions we've never seen before. But I think all of that can be just put at the foot that the workforce, for the most part, is so disposable and meaningless, and it's easy to lose hope, and it's easy to not feel like you're going anywhere, and you're just on a treadmill, clocking in, clocking out, go to sleep, repeat.
Yeah.
It's that the way our system is now, it's no wonder that we're discouraged and we don't have hope, and we get depressed, and because we just don't feel like we're accomplishing anything. All we're doing is getting a paycheck, and that's what, like I said, that's the spirit of Gage.
Wow.
And where we are right now, I mean, there's too many smart, very, very smart, way smarter than me people that have seen this, and that either have invested in it or have support. I mean, it's just too. We just got this is big news. Well, it's not news yet, but Techstars is looking at us. Freaking Techstars.
Wow.
And we're kind of in the short running for a program for economic mobility and workforce development, and that's obviously right up our alley. Right. That's exactly
absolutely.
what it is. I mean, it's like, wow, no crap. Like, this is a great idea.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wow.
Thank you for coming up with
Yeah.
this. Seriously, it's wonderful. And as a manager and a former business owner, a tool like this is invaluable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we like I said, Gen 2 should be out. I'm supposed to say just Q4 this year. Q4 this year. That's really going to be a game changer. The pricing right now so this is a community podcast, right? This is for the
Correct.
Golden Isles.
Golden Isles.
So that's really, I mean, we have a couple of clients in like California and Texas and stuff. For the most part, we're in the Golden Isles, right? So I would invite any businesses to sign up because we're offering legacy pricing. The legacy pricing, and this is not a sales pitch, this is just where we're at. Legacy pricing is going to be, right now we're averaging like $1 or $2 a month per employee. And so they can sign up as a subscription. If they sign up now, then they get that price for the rest.
And where can they sign up?
They can go on gagework.com, so Gage work.com. They can sign up and get started. And like I said, the legacy pricing, they'll have that price forever. As the price goes up, and the price will go up, especially with Gen 2.
Now, as we finish up, we always kind of ask this question to everybody. What would you like to see in the Golden Isles?
Like in anything, like
Just
business?
businesses, yeah, anything. Like, have you ever? I know you're very involved with the Golden Isles, but is there something that you would like to see, or anything to come to the Golden Isles?
I always talk about more like family entertainment, like indoor entertainment, and I think we've done a good job of that recently. Like, there's a lot of like bounce houses and stuff in Brunswick that have. And so they're going that way. That was always kind of because I have a young family, 8-year-old and 5-year-old daughters, and my wife and I love to play with them and hang out with them.
Yeah.
But if we're not going to the beach, then what do we do, right?
Right.
So, you know, I think more of that. I would love to see that. You know, obviously I go to food. You know,
Right.
I really feel like, you know, we have our burgers and our fried onion rings, and we've got our wings and stuff like that. I would love to see more, but I understand the economics behind that, because like there was this place. I'll give it a quick little shout out. There was a little poke bowl place in Brunswick that was it was my go-to, and it's out of business now. But I love that. You know, just it was so fresh and the product was so good. I love Asian food, or this was Hawaiian, of course, but it's basically a sushi bowl, right?
Right.
Poke bowl. It was just unique, right? It was just different, and that's what I tried to do with Salada. And I chose a wrong location, but Salada was very successful by a lot of measurements, and it was you know, fresh, healthy, you know, different option, right? Just more options for eating and food, I think would be great. And I love what downtown Brunswick's doing.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
you know, that's our go-to. That's where we go.
Yeah. What would you say is your? I mean, this might be a hard question to answer.
You're gonna get me in trouble.
I am gonna get you in trouble. Yes. We have to be. You know, we have to throw in those wrenches once in a while.
What's your question?
What is your favorite place then to eat downtown?
Oh, you are going to get me in trouble. Well, I am going to.
I mean, you could always.
I'm going to give you a few. How
Okay.
about that?
That works. Yeah.
Of course, Tipsy's is one of my go-to hangout places. Shout out to Susan and the whole crew there.
Yeah.
You know, they were actually one of our beta users when we were first starting, and there were just so many bugs and so many problems. So shout out to them. Reed's.
Yeah.
You know, Reed's is obviously what Chris is doing there.
Yeah.
It's great. It's our go-to, and of course the brewery. I've got to give that, like Chris and Allie and that whole team there. The brewery is just amazing. I mean, I love how they were able to create a brewery with such a family atmosphere is beyond me. It's like I take my daughters there. I'm 100% comfortable, you know,
Right.
and forgive me for anybody else that I've missed down there, but those three really just stand out. You know?
Yeah. They really have driven downtown to what it is now.
Oh my goodness. And the new Bubba's.
Oh yeah,
the new Bubba's is outstanding.
Yeah,
like I was blown away by that.
Yeah, I was there. What's today? I was there on Thursday night.
Yeah, it is such a cool vibe. It's just like I mean, you know, Bubba's is great. Just, we're next door to the Bubba's on St. Simon's right now, but I just love the vibe, the feel. They really just did an outstanding job. So shout out to Alan and Josh and the whole crew there.
Well, then I guess my second question would be, what would you like to see downtown?
Ooh. I'd like to see a Fuse downtown one day.
Yeah, I mean,
that's again, I'm getting myself in so much trouble because I've promised no more stores. I've promised no more restaurants. I'm focused all in on Gage. And so, and to be honest, actually, with Fuse, we're franchising now, and the question has come up: would you franchise to Brunswick, even though it's in our backyard?
Right.
100% yes. So if there's anybody interested in owning a Fuse franchise, we would do it in Brunswick. The ones we're looking in right now, I think we're really close to closing some deals in Richmond Hill and Savannah.
Nice.
But Brunswick, I want to see a Fuse in Brunswick.
Okay. And now, what about non-food related?
Oh man,
I know.
That's just
I got to ask those tough questions.
That is really tough. You know, my head goes just to entertainment. You know, I like pool halls. I like places to go and just and just have fun. You know, some unique. I think isn't there like a? I haven't. Forgive me, but I don't. Isn't there like some sort of what do they call them? The rooms.
Well, there's it's axe throwing.
Okay. Well, yes, totally. And I met that kid when he was in college. He's awesome. I think that's great. Matted Ox,
Jason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then there was an escape room.
But I believe that's on. I believe that's going to be on St. Simon's.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I thought it was downtown.
Yeah, that would be an interesting add to downtown if they did have.
Totally.
They should have one downtown. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a great answer to your question. So what does downtown need? They need more residences. They need more to feed the downtown area. So they need more homes. They need more homes. They need more people on a daily basis. And what I think downtown Brunswick's done extremely well is that they're so freaking cool, right? And First Friday is obviously a game changer. I just saw an article where it's like it's almost getting too big. You know?
I know we could spend, like I said, another hour talking about that.
Yeah, but I love everything they're doing. But they need to make money on Tuesdays.
You're
they need to make money on Wednesdays. They
Yeah.
need to make money. And in order to do that, you really do need a substantial source of just people that live in the vicinity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you need neighborhoods, you need
Yeah.
more community. And I know there are people. Shout out to Taurus and his crew for working on some stuff, but I think that there are people working on that, right?
Yes.
I mean, but that is what we need. 100,000,000%. That is what downtown needs.
Yeah.
And if you solve for that, it's going to go through the roof.
Yeah. I mean, same thing. Downtown is one of my favorite spots. I'm always downtown.
Right.
So, and that's kind of like a reason why we also kind of started this podcast, and then envelope all of Golden Isles with it.
Yeah. I love what you guys, like I said, I joked with you earlier that I wanted to do this. I wanted to, again, I just can't, I get distracted by the shiny things, shiny objects.
Yeah.
And so every time I told my team, I walked in one day, I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it'll be great. And I'm going to do it 1 hour of the day, and it's going to be this, and it's not going to take away from anything. And
like that 1 hour usually, it turns out to 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to do a salad restaurant, and then
I mean, but we need people like you. So
I appreciate that.
And we'd love to have you back.
I want you to tell my wife that. Okay?
and we would love to have you back, even to talk about Gage again, but even just to talk about other things that are going on in the community.
Well, we'll get through the summer. Like I said, Techstars, we'll know about that in a few weeks. Even if we don't get it, we're in the short runnings being really cool. And then Gen 2, we'll certainly, maybe we come back when Gen 2's out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so this has been great. Thank you so much.
No, I loved it.
If you're a business owner or supervisor, manager, look up gage.com.
Gagework.com.
Gagework.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And check it out. And I think it'd be a great tool for everyone to use.
No, I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is the Beard signing off.
Yeah, this is Buddha.
Hey, Justin Henshaw.
Thank you so much.